The incoming Trump administration is going to shake up law school admissions significantly this cycle into 2025 and beyond. We've already seen a surge in law school applicant numbers. We've already seen impact on affirmative action and potential changes to law school accreditation coming up in the next couple of years. The legal education landscape is already shifting. And so if you're applying to law school this cycle, I'm going to break down everything you need to know. But first, for those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I personally increased my own LSAT score from a 152 to a 175. Now, over the past 2 election cycles, we've already seen what experts call the Trump bump. Here's what happened. Back in 2016, the first Trump election triggered an 8% surge in law school applications. Then in 2020, coupled with the pandemic and national protests, applications soared by 13%. And now in 2024, with Trump returning once again, coupled with polarizing issues like abortion rights, crime, immigration, and diversity in education, we've already seen another wave of applicants. But the impact isn't just about more competition. It's more about a fundamental shift in how law schools are approaching admissions. First off, we're seeing application numbers rising again. As of late November, law school application numbers are up over 35%. This is going to drop off a bit as the cycle goes on, but regardless, we are going to see an increase year over year. Law school applications typically rise during politically contentious times or times of economic uncertainty, and the previous election cycles where Trump was involved have been a catalyst. This is once again continuing this cycle. Many law school applicants are liberal, and they see law school as a way to fight for justice or shape public policy. And if you combine this with recent Supreme Court decision on affirmative action and other hot button issues like abortion, the 2024 admission cycle is shaping up to be one of the most competitive cycles ever. Now that the Supreme Court banned race-based affirmative action last year, this left law schools scrambling to figure out how to maintain diverse student bodies without violating the ruling, and the Trump administration will likely enforce this decision aggressively. So schools are going to be in a tricky situation. They're going to have to walk a tightrope, balancing their ideological commitment to racial diversity with compliance under the law. This could mean less reliance on so-called holistic admissions practices and a return to a greater focus on the numbers, LSAT score, and GPA first and foremost. And so if you are applying to law school, you're going to want to expect even more of an emphasis on quantifiable achievements, of course, getting the highest LSAT score possible. Another big impact here that I'm not seeing talked about that much yet is that the role of the ABA itself could shift, the ABA being the American Bar Association. Trump has, over the years, signaled interest in restructuring or even abolishing the Department of Education entirely. This is the government agency that currently recognizes the American Bar Association as the primary accreditor of law schools. And so it's unlikely that the ABA's influence would disappear entirely. Any changes to its role could disrupt accreditation standards and potentially create new pathways for non-traditional law schools or programs. And even if accreditation remains stable, you can expect the federal government to devote increased scrutiny to law schools that have perceived DEI practices. A Trump DOJ could aggressively pursue cases against law schools that use policies that appear to favor certain racial or ethnic groups, which would further tighten the admissions process and again bring it back to a focus on LSAT score and GPA. Of course, there's been rampant LSAT score inflation over the past couple of years. LSAT medians continue to rise. The top 14 law schools all have LSAT medians of 170 or above. It used to be that a score of 173 put you in the 99th percentile, but now you've got to get a 175 to be in the 99th percentile. And there are a couple of reasons for this LSAT score inflation. First off, the removal of the LSAT logic game section. And the biggest reason, of course, is that it's easier than ever to get accommodations for extra time or extra breaks. LSAC used to be far too strict about this, denying accommodations to students who were clearly deserving. The pendulum has since swung the other way, and it's now easier than ever to get accommodations. And in fact, LSAC is probably giving accommodations to folks who don't even deserve them. They used to only approve 70% of accommodation requests. Now, by their own admission, they approve 98% of accommodations requests. And this is unlikely to change because they've been sued several times, including by the federal government under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so they see it as their obligation legally to provide accommodations, and they would rather err on the side of granting them than denying them. A secondary reason, though, is that it used to be that the LSAT was only offered 4 times a year. Now it's offered 8 times a year, making it easier and more convenient than ever to retake the LSAT. And more chances to retake means more chances to get a higher score. And so, of course, if you are applying to law school, given that LSAT scores will be more important than ever before, of course, you want to aim for the highest LSAT score possible and consider retaking, because there's really no downside to retaking since law schools do not average multiple LSAT scores, but rather they only take the highest score. So to bring it back here, what can you do to stay competitive as a law school applicant? First and foremost, focus on the LSAT. As LSAT score medians are rising and there's an increased competition for more applicants, your LSAT score is going to matter more than ever before. Don't be afraid to retake the LSAT if you think you might do better. And remember that it's much better to apply later with a higher score than earlier with a lower score. So don't be afraid to retake the LSAT in January or February if you think you could do better with a couple of additional weeks or an additional month or two of LSAT prep. If you feel that you'd be best served by waiting a cycle to give yourself another couple months or more to study for the LSAT, it's worth taking that time. Of course, you still want to take the time to craft the strongest application essays possible. Law schools are practicing that delicate balancing act in a post-affirmative action world where they can still consider any hardships or obstacles you faced and how race may have played a role in that, even if they are not considering race directly or explicitly as a numerical metric, give certain applicants a particular boost. And so use your essays to highlight any unique experiences or perspective that you bring to the table. I know a lot of law school applicants feel strongly and passionately about politics, but I do recommend, if possible, avoiding any hot button issues in your essays. And remember that your law school admission officer may not have the same political viewpoints. That being said, of course, you can still get plenty of indications from the news and from law schools' websites about their particular political culture. And so consider going to a law school that, of course, will align with your goals and your values, even if it's not a traditional top tier T14 law school. Now, finally, remember that while this particular admission cycle won't be one of the easier ones, getting the highest LSAT score possible is going to be the best way to boost your chances. And so if you'd like my support on your journey to getting a 170 or above, there are a number of different ways I could support you, whether it's through our live online classes via Zoom, on-demand video courses, small group coaching, and one-on-one coaching. You can check out the links below to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. And in the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.